The Agenda with Michael Knight on News Radio 560 KPQ and KPQ.com.
It's 1:35 on News Radio 560 KPQ. Michael Knight, your humble host, here in our palatial radio studios, looking out on the Avenue of Dreams and saying hello to our very special guest, Norman Buck Tupling. He's candidate for Douglas County Commissioner, District Number 3. Norman Tupling, welcome to KPQ. Nice to have you on the air.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Is this your first time running for any office in terms of local politics?
Yes, it is. Very first time.
Well, it's good to be a rookie because people get a little sick of the old guard sometimes. What made you think that this was the time for you to get into politics?
So I've been thinking about it for a little while now. It's not something that just was a spur of the moment. It's been on my mind, on my heart for, probably 4 or 5 years. And what really sparked it is as you go around and you talk to different people in the community and the district, and you hear some of the concerns they have, and I just kind of feel like sometimes the people get forgotten in amongst all the things that go on in our local government. And I really feel like I can represent the people of our district and our county because it matters to me and they matter to me.
Well, you thought about this for a couple of years. When you were giving it some thought, what issues always came to mind over and over again that needed attention?
Well, one of the things that's come to mind a lot is, the county goes about doing their business, everyday stuff that they do, and sometimes it just, the people get forgotten. And I want to do the best that I can to represent the people of this district and of this county in the way that they need represented, the way that if they come to me with an issue, I want to do the best I can for them to resolve the issue, to make it better for them, whatever they need. I want to do that, not make them feel like they're just pushed aside and they get what they get.
Douglas County has different needs from Chelan County. Can you give me an example of something that would be like top of your top list of something that needs to be not changed necessarily, but given attention to?
Well, I think one of the things that needs to have some attention given to it is how we're funding our roads. What are we doing? Are we doing the absolute best we can to use the funds we have available to do the maintenance, the repairs, the things that need to be done with our county roads and our infrastructure in our county and in our district in such a way that the people are getting what they feel like they need out of it.
Roads are expensive. You know that, right, Norman Tupling?
Very, very expensive.
Very expensive. So it's usually projects like that have financial aid coming from the state or from the federal government, if at all possible, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And could you work on those relationships to ensure that those budgets are always going to be there? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. And if we can find any other avenues, anything we can do to drum up more finances to use for that kind of stuff, I would like to do that in any way that we can. And
would you raise taxes to make those roads more repairable?
No, I'm really not interested in raising taxes. I would like to see what other avenues we can travel down to do it without having to raise taxes. Because as you know, we're pretty well taxed as it is.
When you threw your hat into the ring and made your announcement, any hesitation afterwards saying, I wonder if I've done the right thing?
Well, I think anyone that says that no, they didn't have that thought would be telling you a big fib.
I think so, too.
I think as humans, we all have those thoughts, and I did. But the thought never went away. It was still there, and the feeling was still there that I needed to do it. And, I just hope that it turns out good, and we'll see what happens.
Have you received any advice from someone who says, here's how you run for county government? Here's how, if you're running for office, you need this, you need this, you need this, and you also really need this. What's the list of things that a new candidate needs to be successful besides a website?
Well, some of the things I've heard is just get out and talk to the people. Listen to the people. What are their thoughts? What are their concerns? What can you do for them?
I think invariably somebody has to go door to door, right, and introduce themselves. I couldn't do that, but how are you at knocking on doors and saying, hi, my name's Norman?
I don't mind knocking on people's doors, and I'm going to have to do it. It's just part of it, and I don't mind doing that because I don't mind talking to people. I enjoy it.
And also, when you talk to people, you have an opportunity to hear their concerns. And if you were to give those concerns voice, because you're just one step away from being a private citizen yourself, what's top of mind for people of Douglas County? What do they want from their commissioners?
Well, talking to them, I just feel like the sense that I get from some of the people I've talked to, they want the commissioner to represent them, represent the taxpayer, and remember that you're working for them. That's what you're there for. You're there to represent those people, and you are working for them. Don't forget about them.
It's a hard job, and it's a time-consuming job, but it's not a very fruitful job in terms of the money that you receive. Am I correct about that?
I think wage-wise, they do okay. It's not, I don't think you're going to get rich off it, but that's not what it's all about. It's about serving and giving back to the people and back to the county that has given to you.
People say that if change is going to come to Wenatchee Valley in terms of growth, in terms of new industries, in terms of new housing, that the room is on the Douglas County side. Do you agree with that? And how cautious do we have to be before we look to Douglas County to solve all our growth problems?
Well, I would say, yeah, that is true. There is more room for growth over there, but we got to be careful. I mean, you don't want to take and grow something too fast and just start jumping in. I mean, we need to be careful and mindful of what we're doing with it, because it doesn't just affect one little area, it affects the whole county.
And the people who may vote for you, what do they think about growth? What do they think about change? Because that's what it really represents.
Well, I think that change is, they feel like change is an okay thing, but let's not forget where we came from either and what our roots are. And let's not forget, just because we grow and we get a little bigger doesn't mean that we forget about the small guy either. And, remember them. They're part of the county too.
I've had a number of people say that what we need to do is welcome growth, not necessarily on the Douglas side, just in the valley itself, keeping these counties apart from one another for just a moment. You have to welcome growth. You have to get the right industry to be part of that growth. You have to key that in as best you can with more available housing, both homes to buy and apartments to rent. And also you have to do it without disturbing the quality of life. I know every time I say that I laugh, because what people are saying is, I want you to change something. In fact, I want you to change the very fabric of society, but don't change my quality of life. And that's a very difficult order to come up with. Yeah,
there's a fine line there, and it's hard to balance it at times.
Well, if I mention quality of life to you, what does it represent? What about your life growing up here do you never want to see change?
Well, one of the things I don't is small town stuff, small business, morals, faith, family. Let's stick to the things that have made us what we are, not forget them, and not forget the people that have worked hard to make this county what it is. This county was founded a long time ago on people that worked really hard, and their families are still out here farming. They're still raising cattle. I mean, different generations, but they're still doing it, and they want their family values to be represented too in this county. And so with that growth, let's keep that in mind.
Agriculture will always be part of the future of Douglas County. I say always. We think it's always going to be a part of the future of Douglas County. But the future of agriculture seems to have turned entirely toward a technological equation, where all the changes are coming to the harvest, to the way trees are grown, to the way the crops are harvested, to the way the fruit is processed, or any other element of agriculture, whether it be wheat or cattle. So the future seems to be a modern one, whereas the past is more traditional and pastoral, and those two don't have to clash, but it's two very different worlds now, the future of technology and agriculture and the past of agriculture and working the land as a single man.
Yeah, technology is becoming a big thing of the fruit industry, cattle, and wheat farming. There's a place for technology, and there's a place for what some people would call the old school way, and there's a balance between the two. And they're both just as, I feel like they're both important. I mean, just because, I don't know, I see things around what we do, and I see some farmers are really growing in technology and really changing, then you have some that aren't. Well, just because some of them aren't doesn't mean that there's something wrong with their farm or something wrong with what they're doing. Maybe they're just at a different place in their operation than the next person. And so you have to be willing to, balance that.
What do you think is the biggest financial threat that faces the average farmer in Douglas County right now? He or she is up against a number of positives and negatives. What's the one that hurts them the most, do you think?
Markets are a big thing. We got to have strong markets because without them, we just don't have it. So a lot of that relies on trade. So trade is a big deal for us around here.
And in your mind, is the documents and the legislation that control and the international agreements that control trade, some of them are in jeopardy right now?
Yeah, they are, and we don't. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it and how it all works out. I think right now, we're kind of wondering. We're in that limbo stage, going, what's going to happen? So we're kind of panicky a little bit, but in the long run, I like to be hopeful and positive, and I think in the long run, it's going to turn out. It's going to be okay for us.
The idea of law and order is something that everyone worries about just because they want to feel safe in their home. They want to feel safe in their community. They want to know that they are being taken care of and watched over by a police force that's got their handle on the situation in the county. And your view of the sheriff and his department and the way Douglas County is being served?
Well, I think overall they're doing an okay job. One of the things that's, as everybody knows, they've seen a lot of stuff about schools and school safety. And I think that right now there's a lot of parents and people out there that's a big priority for them. And it's a big priority for me. I have a young daughter that's in school in Mansfield. And I think it's very important that we use the resources we have, the technology we have, and we do the best we can to protect our children and our families. And so that's one thing that I would like to work with them, if I do get elected, and try to make sure that each of our schools are being protected properly in our county, and make sure that our children are protected.
What would that mean, protecting them?
Well, I hear a lot of different things that are going on. Some schools have had, Douglas County Sheriff's Department has went around and done some training at these different schools. Some have accepted, some haven't. And I would hope to see them all do it. I think the sheriff's office is doing a good thing by going out and training these schools and educating them on stuff. And then I've heard that there are also some schools are getting officers and hiring them and putting them in place, and that's probably good too. But I really feel we need to be proactive instead of reactive.
And the idea that someone in school, well, let me say it another way. If the safety of the school is being defended by one person somewhere on that campus, and that individual is armed, what sort of training and what sort of abilities is that person going to require? Because on that fateful day, they're going to come up against a shooter that's involved in his crime.
Well, they're going to need to have the best training they could possibly
exactly,
have.
The very best training. And I just wonder if that's available.
It's available out there. It is. There's a lot of very highly skilled people. We have them right in our own sheriff's department, and they're trained. They know what they're doing, and they're out there, and it can be done. We just, I think we all need to work together to make sure it gets done, and it's done in a safe manner. As you say, they need to be trained.
Let's switch the subject just briefly. I look at the traffic every morning, and there's some choke spots on the east side that seem to be chronic traffic problems. And I wondered if you've ever looked at that, or you hear from the locals who are thinking about voting for you. What do they say about morning traffic?
Well, I've seen some of that morning traffic.
I'll bet you have.
When I worked down there at the PUD, I used to drive down there in it sometimes, and it's tough, and that's part of that. You talked about the growing of East Wenatchee. Well, there's the one side of it. Okay, you start bringing in more growth, more people. Well, now we got to be able to have an infrastructure to handle these people. So that's something that we really need to work on and make sure that we're getting the infrastructure built up as the people grow, as the population grows. Because there are some bottlenecked areas down there, and it's tough.
Do you go to commission meetings? Do you sit in and listen to what the business of the day and see what they're doing?
I have not been yet. I plan on it. I've been busy with some things. As you people know, I am a farmer. But, no, I plan on going. I want to be involved with them and get more involved in it.
Maybe they don't know about your farming background. Tell us about your farm.
So, started out, I was a journeyman lineman at the Douglas County PUD. I worked there for quite a while, and then I got the opportunity from a friend here in Mansfield to take over his farm. Well, I was working as a lineman and farming, doing both. Well, then a bunch of CRP ground that was in contract with the federal government came out. And so I had to make a choice. Either I was going to stay a lineman or I was going to go farming. Well, I've been raised around farming my entire life, and I've always had a passion for it. And so I talked it over with my wife, and we decided to go for it. And that was in 2012 when I left the PUD, and we've been doing it ever since. And it's a great way of life. You know, maybe you're not going to be a millionaire, but that's okay. It's a good life. You get to raise your family, get to be around your family. It's great.
What are you raising, Norman?
We have one daughter, and we're raising winter wheat.
And how many acres do you have under cultivation?
Oh, around 1,200.
That's not a little farm. That's a big farm.
So the way that works is you alternate crops.
Mm-hmm.
1 year you have half of your crop is in what we call fallow, and then the other half of your crop is in crop. So you let some set idle for a year, and then you seed it, and then you rotate that.
So you feel comfortable asking another farmer for your vote because you know the world that they live in, you know the battles that they fight in their heads and in the fields, and you know what their future looks like. But who's going to do the winter wheat if you become a commissioner?
Well, I'm going to be doing both, and we have a hired hand that works for us. I have a relative that works here for us, and so between him and I, we'll be doing it. We'll be putting in some hours, but it's okay. I know we can get it done.
Invariably, when a commissioner goes into town to pick up some groceries, people in the line at the grocery store say, wait a minute, you're the commissioner, right? Here's something I want to discuss with you. Are you comfortable meeting people in the street like that and having those kind of conversations where you learn from your constituents what they're thinking that day?
Definitely. You know, I see a lot of people that way day to day, and just in farming alone, and we discuss things, and I've learned a lot from people in that way. And so, yes, definitely, I enjoy visiting with people in that way.
One thing that politicians have to learn, which I'm not very good at, is compromise. And that's just because it's the nature of the business. You want something, and to get the votes to get it done, you make promises, you make alliances, you make do with half a plan rather than no plan. And even then, you can't do it on your own. To get the votes, you have to have other people's help. So it's a network of commissioners, not just one. And how do you feel comfortable? How comfortable, I should say, do you feel working in that environment?
It's okay. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. You know, I think that between the three of us, we will use our heads and we'll come together and make sure that we get done what's best for the people and what's best for our county. You know, as long as you may have to compromise something down the road, but are you doing what's right for the people? Are you doing what's right for the county? That's the main thing.
And also, some people say, wait, that's half a loaf. And you say, yeah, but it was half a loaf or nothing. And I got you half a loaf. and sometimes people are grateful for it, and sometimes they don't understand. But that's the world of politics, if I'm not mistaken. Well,
and you're not all, unfortunately, as hard as you would like to and as much as you would love to please every single person, you would love to make every person's concern, I mean, you want to make them all perfect, right? Well, unfortunately, and we're not always going to please every single person. It's not great to know that, but it's just, unfortunately, that is how it is.
Norman Buck Tupling is his name. He's the candidate for Douglas County Commissioner, District Number 3. He's a farmer of winter wheat, and he's a rookie in the world of politics, and he's asking for your vote. Norman, nice to talk with you. I wish we could have met in person. We'll do that next time, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And we'll probably have all the candidates on again before the election. So thanks for being